The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the kitchen. It was a Tuesday, the kind of day that melts into the calendar without leaving a mark. I was wiping down the countertops, the lemony scent of the cleaner a small, familiar comfort. My husband, Mark, was in the living room, but the house felt still, silent in a way that was heavier than usual. We were, by all accounts, a happy couple. We'd been married for 12 years, lived in a lovely suburban home in a nice Ohio neighborhood, and had 2 beautiful kids, Liam and Emma, who were currently upstairs, lost in the dreamscapes of sleep. We had the life we'd worked so hard to build. Yet, in the quiet moments, I'd sometimes catch a flicker of something in Mark's eyes, a distant thought, a shadow I couldn't quite name. I'd always chalked it up to work stress. He was an architect, and his projects were demanding. That night, after the kids were down and the day's chaos had settled into a peaceful lull, he called me into the living room. "Sarah, can we talk for a minute?" His voice was calm, but there was an undercurrent of tension that made my stomach flutter. I sat down on the plush gray sofa opposite him, tucking my feet beneath me. The warm glow of the floor lamp cast soft shadows across his face. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to sound light. "Did the Henderson account fall through again?" He shook his head, a small, weary smile touching his lips. "No, nothing like that. Work's fine." He took a deep breath, his gaze fixed on the woven pattern of the rug. "It's about us." My heart did a little stutter step. Us. When a conversation starts with, "It's about us," it's rarely followed by, "I think we should get more matching sweaters." He looked up, and his blue eyes, usually so full of warmth and humor, were serious. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, Sarah. About our life. About me." I waited, my mind racing through possibilities. Was he sick? Had he lost his job and hadn't told me? Was there someone else? The last thought sent a cold jolt through me. "I need to ask you for something," he said, his voice low and deliberate. "And I know it's going to sound, I know you're not going to expect it." "Okay," I said slowly, bracing myself. "You can ask me anything, Mark. You know that." He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped tightly together. The silence stretched for a beat too long. Then he said it. "I need you to see me as a woman." The words hung in the air between us, nonsensical and alien. I blinked, sure I had misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" He took another deep, shuddering breath. "I've been fighting this my whole life, Sarah. Since I was a kid. The person I am inside, the person I see in the mirror isn't the man everyone else sees. I'm a woman. My name is Maya." I stared at him, or her. My brain was a browser with too many tabs open, all of them frozen. Mark, my husband, the man who taught Liam how to throw a spiral football, who carried Emma on his shoulders at the county fair, who fixed the leaky faucet and grilled a mean steak. This person was telling me he was a woman. "This is a joke," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Is this some kind of prank? Are the kids in on this?" I looked around, half expecting our friends to jump out from behind the curtains. "It's not a joke, Sarah," she said, and the use of the feminine pronoun, coming from her mouth, was like a physical blow. "It's the most real thing I've ever said to you." A torrent of emotions crashed over me. Confusion, first and foremost, a dizzying disorientation. Then, a hot surge of betrayal. 12 years. 12 years of marriage, of building a life, of intimacy. Had it all been a lie? "How long?" My voice was sharp, cracking. "How long have you known?" "I've always felt it," Maya said softly. "But I didn't have the words for it when I was young. I thought it was just a phase, a weird thoughts. I buried it. I thought if I just lived the life everyone expected, go to college, get a good job, marry a wonderful woman, have kids, it would go away. But it doesn't go away, Sarah. It only gets louder. Anger, cold and hard, settled in my chest. So our entire marriage was you, what? Pretending, using me as a prop in your performance. No, God, no." Her eyes filled with tears. "What I feel for you is real. It has always been real. I love you, Sarah. I love our children. This isn't about not loving you. This is about me finally being honest about who I am. I can't live in this skin anymore. It's a prison." I stood up, my legs feeling weak. I can't do this right now. I needed air. I needed to get away from this stranger on my sofa. I need to process this. I fled to our bedroom, locking the door behind me, a childish, futile gesture. I sat on the edge of the bed, my whole body trembling. My husband was gone. In his place was a woman named Maya. The foundations of my reality had not just cracked, they had vaporized. The days that followed were a blur of silent meals and strained conversations. We moved around each other like ghosts in our own home. I was grieving. I was grieving for the man I thought I married, for the future I had imagined for us. I felt a profound sense of loss, and beneath it, a simmering rage. How could he do this to me? To our family? I threw myself into research. I spent nights hunched over my laptop, reading articles, watching videos, diving into forums for partners of transgender individuals. I learned about gender dysphoria. I read stories of other spouses who had gone through this same seismic shock. Some marriages ended, others transformed. It was during this time that I stumbled upon a video from a family channel. The wife was speaking about her partner's transition. She talked about the pain, the confusion, but also about the incredible courage it took. She said something that stuck with me: I fell in love with a person, not a gender. And the person I fell in love with was finally able to shine through, without the shadow of a lie. Was that true for me? Had I fallen in love with Mark, or had I fallen in love with the soul inside? One evening, about 2 weeks after the conversation, I found Maya. It was still so hard to think of her that way, sitting at the kitchen table, crying silently. She was looking at a photo album, at a picture from our wedding day. Mark in his tux, beaming, his arm wrapped tightly around me. I look so happy, she whispered, her voice thick with tears. And I was so happy to be marrying you. But I also look like a stranger to myself. Like I'm wearing a costume. In that moment, my anger began to dissolve, replaced by a heartbreaking wave of empathy. This wasn't a choice she had made lightly. This was a lifelong struggle, a pain I could barely comprehend. The man in the wedding photo wasn't a liar, he was a person in profound pain, trying his best to build a beautiful life with the tools he had. What happens now? I asked, my voice softer than it had been in weeks. She looked up, her eyes red-rimmed and hopeful. I don't know everything. I've started seeing a therapist who specializes in gender identity. I'd like it if you would come with me sometime. So we can talk, with help. I nodded slowly. Okay, I can do that. Therapy was brutal and beautiful. It was a safe space where I could scream my anger and voice my fears. What does this mean for us as a couple? Am I a lesbian now? What will we tell our children? What will our families say? What about intimacy? The questions poured out of me. Maya was patient. She answered everything with a raw honesty that was both terrifying and inspiring. She explained that her attraction to me hadn't changed. She was a woman who loved a woman. As for our relationship, it would be whatever we decided to build it into. The hardest part was telling the kids. We sat them down in the living room, on that same sofa where our world had shifted. Liam was 9, Emma was 6. You know how Daddy has seemed a little sad lately? Maya began, her voice gentle. Emma nodded, her big eyes wide. Well, it's because Daddy has always felt a little mixed up on the inside. My brain and my body didn't match. And I've finally figured out that on the inside, I'm really a girl. Just like Mommy and Emma. Liam frowned, processing. So, you're not Daddy anymore. I will always be your parent, Maya said, her voice cracking. I will always love you and protect you and play with you. But I'm going to start living as the woman I am. So, instead of Daddy, you can call me Maya. Emma, with the stunning simplicity of a child, shrugged. Okay, can I go finish my drawing now? Liam thought for a second longer. So, if you're a girl, does that mean I have 2 moms? Yes, buddy, I said, my heart swelling with a love so fierce it stole my breath. It does. Cool, he said, and then he jumped off the sofa. Can we get pizza? And just like that, the biggest, most terrifying hurdle was cleared with the effortless grace of childhood acceptance. The outside world was less kind. Telling our families was a minefield. My parents were conservative, and their initial reaction was one of horror and disbelief. They accused Maya of being selfish, of destroying our family. It was a painful rift that took months, and a lot of tearful conversations, to even begin to heal. Mark's family was slightly more understanding, though confused and worried. Then came the physical changes. They started slowly. Maya began growing her hair out. She started laser hair removal on her face. She began wearing subtle makeup and more androgynous clothing around the house. It was jarring at first, like watching a familiar landscape slowly transform. The sharp lines of Mark's jaw seemed to soften. The way she moved became more fluid. The shocking part, the part that truly stunned me, wasn't the transition itself. It was what emerged from underneath. As the shell of Mark began to recede, the person I saw emerging was not a stranger. It was the person I had fallen in love with, but more. The shadow I had seen in her eyes for years was gone, replaced by a brilliant, unburdened light. Her laugh, which had always been warm, now came more easily, a genuine, bubbling sound that filled the house. She was playful, more present with the kids. The constant, low-grade anxiety that had always thrummed beneath Mark's calm exterior had vanished. One Saturday afternoon, she was in the backyard with Emma, twirling her around, both of them laughing. The sun was catching the new, longer strands of her hair. She was wearing a simple linen tunic and leggings. And in that moment, I didn't see my husband. I saw a beautiful, vibrant woman, full of a joy I hadn't seen in years. I saw Maya, and my heart didn't break, it swelled. I was falling in love with her all over again. The intimacy we rebuilt was different, deeper. It was based on a radical, terrifying honesty we had never had before. We were learning each other's bodies and souls from a new perspective. It was awkward and funny and sometimes sad, but it was real. The biggest test came when she started hormone replacement therapy. The emotional volatility was a roller coaster. There were days of tears and days of incredible euphoria. I became her pillar, her safe harbor. And in return, she showed me a vulnerability that Mark could never have accessed. About a year after she first came out to me, we went out to a nice restaurant for our anniversary. It was the first time she was presenting fully as herself in a public setting. She wore a beautiful, flowing dress, her hair styled softly around her face. She was nervous, her hands trembling slightly as she looked over the menu. I reached across the table and took her hand. "You look beautiful, Maya." Tears welled in her eyes. "Thank you, Sarah, for everything, for staying." "I didn't just stay," I said, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. "I chose you. I chose us. All of us." What happened next, after that shocking revelation in our living room, was not the end of our story. It was the beginning of a new, more authentic one. It was messy and unpredictable and far from the fairy tale I'd imagined. But it was ours. We were no longer Mark and Sarah, the perfect suburban couple. We were Sarah and Maya, a queer family navigating the world with two amazing kids who had taught us the true meaning of unconditional love. The shock didn't ruin us. It shattered the illusion of the life we were supposed to have, so we could finally build the life we were meant to have. And that life, with all its challenges and its beautiful, hard-won joy, was more real and more wonderful than anything I could have ever expected.